Might have a problem with some hood clearance, and because of that I might need the LS1 intake or lower intake. This is a 5.3 from a truck, so the only way I could make the LS1 intake fit was if I removed the pulley that used to sit right here, and of course bend that neck. So what I did, I took the front end apart, I cut this support here and removed the pulley, and this is how it used to look. So the bracket was sitting right there, and this pulley used to be right there. So I removed all that. So I chopped that out with a grinder. I moved the pulley over here. I cleaned that up a little bit. Put a longer bolt, and I just had some pipe that I had been using from building the motor mounts that I made, and I used this pipe to extend the pulley. So push it a little bit further up, and threw a bolt in there, and now I got the pulley set up. So it turns out that our 5.3 is going to have a little bit of a clearance issue with the LS mount. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to bring the water pump forward, so which will pretty much change the position of this tube here. So what I did, I got myself an LS1 water pump and a couple of spacers that will space it out. So these two spacers right here are going to be used to space out the water pump and push it forward. And the way they're mounted is they go back here. And so it's one on each side. And that's what's going to get us this water pump up front, and it's going to change the position of that hose. It should be a pretty straightforward job. So what I'm doing here is the first thing I have to do is remove the bolts that are holding the water pump onto the block. So I have this Milwaukee drill that's like been super helpful, and all I have to do is kind of twist a little bit and just let the ratchet do the work. So once I get all the bolts out of there, you'll notice that I loosen them all out, and then I move into that pulley. And the reason why you want to knock out that pulley right now is because if you try to pull the pulley off after the water pump has been removed, it's going to be just too much of a pain. It's going to be moving all over the place. So this is the easiest way to do it. Just remove the pulley while the water pump's on the block. So now that the pulley's out, go ahead and do the same thing and get that thermostat housing out. So just a couple bolts and it comes right out. So now the water pump is out, and what I'm going to be looking at is I want to make sure that all the sealant is out of there, that it's pretty much clean, and I'm able to put the gaskets back on there and put the new water pump on. So I grabbed the razor blade and slowly clean it up a little bit. It's important that you don't get too crazy with a razor blade or anything sharp, because you don't want to score any edges of the block, and that applies to anything that you're doing on that motor. So I cleaned it up, and now it's ready to go. So those spacers that I bought, or that I'm showing there, is they're pretty straightforward spacers. You can get them from anywhere. eBay has them. You can get them from $23 up to $40. It's an aluminum block. Don't get ridiculous. You don't have to spend the crazy money and get the expensive ones. Those cheap ones are going to be exactly the same. If they're made in wherever they're made, doesn't matter. It's an aluminum block. What matters is that you have some gaskets to put them onto the water pump and engine block. So you see me there grabbing some bolts. The bolts come with a $20 kit, and the bolts are just a little bit longer than the ones that are factory. So first I slide the bolts on. I put one gasket, and then I put those aluminum spacers. Now I'm gonna have to put another gasket on there before I slide the water pump onto the block. Pretty straightforward stuff, nothing complicated. The main thing here is just keeping it simple. Nothing on these engines is difficult, and the reality is nothing on a car is that complicated. I mean, the thing is, you just need to get in there and do it. If you don't do it, it's never gonna get done. These things don't build themselves. Everything's fun to do. You just have to kind of get moving on it. So right there, I'm using that Milwaukee ratchet to tighten up the bolts again. I'm just tighten them all down evenly, getting them nice and snug. I should probably bust out a torque wrench, but I'm not gonna do that this time. It's gonna be fine for me. But if you need the torque wrench, go ahead and get one. So right there, you see the thermostat housing. Make sure you put the gasket back on there. It's just 2 bolts, same thing, nice and snug. Those bolts are a little bit, as a matter of fact, they're the same size. So it's probably gonna be the same torque. We should probably look that one up. And do the same thing with the pulley. It's gonna be a couple bolts. You can put the 2 bolts back on and snug them down. And nothing crazy. You don't have to break your arm tightening these up. Just tighten them up, get them nice and snug. All right, and this kind of wraps it up, and you'll see me explaining the rest of the situation here. So pretty much what's happening is, so now I need to get the belt rerouted. Rerouting the belt's a little bit tricky because now I have a completely different setup. As you can see up top on the right side, that alternator is completely swung to the right. One thing you might not see there is the bracket that I haven't built. It's a little bracket that's going to attach to that lower bolt in the alternator, and the alternator bracket has already been modified to accept it. You might be able to see it there. There's a little notch right there. So this ended up being the end result of the LS1 water pump install. So as you can see, the water pump's in there, and what I did, I ended up modifying the truck brackets to swing the alternator that way. So the alternator used to sit right there, and now it's over there, and it's also lower. And the way I did that was I cut the bracket from right here with and I did all this with a grinder, by the way. So I mean, you don't need a special machine shop. I mean, it will be beneficial if you have access to a machine shop, but if you don't, I mean, this is stuff you can do at home. So I chopped up the mount, I swung the alternator to that way, and then I grinded down this edge right here. So I cleaned it up a little bit, and which let the alternator drop down in there. So you can see how that looks. I reused the same truck, the serpentine belt, and the only thing I was a little bit concerned about was this right here, the belt hitting the hose, but it doesn't look that bad at all. There's actually, it looks like there's more than enough space, and you can see right there. The clamp is sitting right here. I'll go ahead and remove that, and I'll put the clamp on the other side. So that looks completely fine to me. It doesn't look like it's gonna hit at all. So this is what I'm gonna be using. So this is all the truck stuff, the pulleys. The only thing I did was the LS1 water pump. I'm not sure if I even needed it, but I figured I was planning on playing around with the intake later on. I don't want to have to get in there again and just take that apart. So, and the water pump is not that expensive, so I figured might as well swap it out while the engine's out. I actually have to remove the motor out one more time to get that done, and that's it. So here's a closer look.